tag. We don't have a quorum present of any of our tags, so we're not going to be doing any roll calls. The objective today is to go over the proposals that are on our agenda, and we're going to start with one that touches the IBC, IFC, and IMC. Once we're done with that one, if you're a member of the IMC tag, I would welcome you to stay, but there shouldn't be any real need for you to hang around if you've got other things to do for the day. So trying to get that one cleared first. And then, but the goal is to make sure that any language in these proposals that touches the different codes works across the codes. And so hopefully as an outcome of today's meeting, if there's revisions to the proposals, we can take those back to the individual tags with the recommendation of this group. And hopefully we can get those blessed by the individual tags for inclusion or a recommendation for adoption to the committees and then the councils. And so getting forward, I didn't have a bunch of time to prep my stuff for this meeting, so my computer might run a little bit slow because I don't have them downloaded locally. But I'm gonna pop open 24 GP1074, which is the one that touches all of our current tags that are working, and we'll begin there. So.
And I'm back on, just to let people, this is Hoyt, I'm back on.
Thank you, Hoyt. Rosanna, can you share that agenda for me again one more time? While I get all this stuff open. Okay, got that. Just getting all my screens organized here. All right, so before us, I have 24 GP1-074 throughout the discussions within the different tag groups. I don't know how this was discussed at the mechanical tag. I did hear from Krista that there was no reservations on what the proposal contains across the different codes. And as I get in here, let me look at what the building code tag has on here. So the building code tag, just defer it to the correlation group, and then looking at the IFC group. The IFC group recommended the IFC language for adoption within the fire code. So at this point, I have this one is the proponent is David Mao. I'm not sure if he's here today, but we have representatives from both the fire tag and the building code and our mechanical group. I had opened this one up for discussion amongst the group and welcome discussion from the public as well. And if there's any points of contention, we can make some modifications to this here today and bring back a revised proposal to the individual tags. So opening up for comments and discussion. And is there anybody who would like to talk about this particular proposal? This one's on we got Ben.
Thanks, Dustin. Ben Omura, SBC council member representing mechanical engineers and mechanical MVP Tag Chair. So I guess to recap some of the discussion that we had on this proposal, on the last tag meeting, one of the items that got brought up that was somewhat addressed in the letter that David had submitted for testimony
I have
regarding
that here as well. I can pull that up. Would you like me to pull it up, Ben?
it. Sure, that'd be great. It was just around uh, just noting that there are definitely instances where BMS, building management system items will be interacting with some of these systems. So it was definitely something where I don't know if there's any clarifications that would be good to include to help make that link. And then I guess the other point of discussion, and some of the other tag members are here today as well that might be able to comment, was just understanding if there's a definition of what a raceway was, or if that would be another helpful addition to this code change proposal. Thanks.
Micah?
Thanks, Dustin. I didn't remember this being approved. I thought there was some open questions on the 1 hour rating that was less than other sections of the code that have 2 hour rating, and I don't believe that it was equivalent. And there were still some open items there, and it wasn't exactly correlated or approved. But I don't remember this being approved fully, so I
Well,
appreciate it. But that was the question.
I gotcha. So as far as my notes within the building code tag, they had discussion and they didn't recommend for adoption. The fire code tag is what that's what I have on my notes for here is that they at our October 15th meeting that it was recommended for adoption within that group, it has the note for scheduling the correlation meeting on this one. So the plan here is to take these back for another look by those groups anyway. And so it's not the end all say all for this one within the fire tag as well. So I don't want you to feel like the questions that we're raising here are going to go unheard by that group as well.
Perfect. And are you posting that letter from the proponent, or could you email that to me if you get a chance? If you're not posting it, it'd be awesome.
I can definitely email it to you. I'm trying to raise it up because I didn't get the chance to download all this to my computer right before the meeting. It's taking longer than I would love for it to open up in my PDF viewer at the moment. But I have a comment letter that's just dragging here for me to open up.
No
Apologies.
worry. If it comes up, if you send it over and if this comes back to the IBC tag, that'd be awesome. Thanks, Dustin.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
David.
I'm the proponent for this, and Kimberly helped me on this. This language is coming out of the 2027 ICC. And as far as the 2 hour protection, it's not addressing the 2 hour protection that's required for ventilation systems. That's 90920. This is just for detection and control systems or circuits as they relate to fire alarm circuits or fire alarm systems. It's not lessening the survivability of any of the critical components of a smoke control system. This is just addressing the vague requirement that says all wiring, regardless of voltage, shall be in a continuous raceway. It doesn't address what those circuits are. And it's kind of overkill in a building that has a lot of detection in it, where those devices wouldn't be installed because of the smoke control system. They're installed because a fire alarm system is required, and then the smoke control system is triggered. So anything that's related to the smoke control system still has to meet the fire survival requirements of 90920 and anywhere in 909. It's just clarifying what the raceways would be used for, and alternatives to having raceways run throughout a building. If it's a fully sprinkled building, 1 hour protection, I mean, that meets the intent. The idea behind it is if these devices activate during a fire alarm, they've done their job. They've basically triggered the smoke control system to do its job. The raceway adds no fire protection. It's only a mechanical protection. But it's very, very expensive to put this in buildings. And there's discrepancies on who's enforcing it. Actually, right now, nobody's enforcing it because the AHJs lean on the electrical, because raceway is defined in NEC. It's not defined in IBC, IMC, or IFC. And they lean on the electrical, but electrical is not inspecting projects. These systems, they're not inspecting them per IBC or IMC or IFC. They're inspecting per NEC standards. So this is just clarifying what the detection and control circuits, how they have to be run. So as an AHJ that's reviewing this, or a contractor that's installing this, as long as they meet one of these criteria, they're not hindering the system, they're not degrading the survivability, they're not compromising the system, because the 2-hour protection is still required for the ventilation system and the control system as part of 90920. So this is just the language that they're in the 2027 code. Their reasoning for it, which is a big hole in the code, which I'm addressing right now and bringing it up, is the fact that this requirement's there, but nobody's enforcing it. I mean, Ken can speak to that. Many HJs can speak to it. They lean on electrical, and electrical doesn't look for this. But if there's a contractor that's doing the job per the code, it's 30 to 40% more expensive to do it, or they're oftentimes not even able to do the job because their bids aren't competitive, and we're perpetuating the same whole loophole in this job or in this code, and projects are with similar scope are being done differently. And that's kind of how this addresses it. Gives the AHJ something to lean on to say, hey, when I'm doing a review, or an engineer, an architect that's saying when we're implementing these systems, it gives them basically this criteria saying that these circuits have to be survivable for 1 hour protection, not the ventilation circuits, not that stuff, just anything that's part of the fire alarm system. Because smoke control, when you put a fire alarm system in, the fire alarm panel becomes a smoke control panel. It's the brains. There's no such thing as a firefighter smoke control panel. It is the fire alarm system. The graphic enunciator with the HOA switches and stuff, that's referred to as a firefighter smoke control panel, but there's no functionality there. That's none of the inputs, the logic's written there. It's all done through the fire panel. That's why fire panels also have to be UKO listed for smoke control, because they're the main brain of the hub of this. But having devices like tampers, water flow switches, smoke detectors for elevator recall, or fire smoke dampers that aren't part of the fire alarm system have to be in raceway. It's very expensive, and it's really, there's no benefit for it. I mean, if a wire's run above a hard lit ceiling in a sprinkler building, and it doesn't need mechanical protection because the wire's not accessible. There's a lot of modifications or tenant improvements going on in there. So that's how it's meant to address it. It's not like compromising the survivability of the system at all.
Gotcha. Hoyt,
This may be a stupid question, and I may have required it when I was over conservative. But one question I have when these wiring systems are coming in, and I'm not familiar with an FPA 70, but I am familiar with the section in the IBC. And I always said when it had to be protected, when you start going through like what was noted, when you went through higher rated assemblies, I made them make sure it was protected. In like when you penetrated a 3-hour rated assembly or something like that, you maintain that rating. When I read this now, when you're going through wiring and stuff, and I always thought that was required in the code, that you had to be that, in the code that I have, that you had to be, when it says not less than 1 hour, the way I read this code change means you just got to be not less than 1 hour. There's nothing in the code that gives me a direction based on this change where it could be required to be a higher protection when you're penetrating like a 3-hour rated assembly, or some places 2-hour rated assembly. Please educate me how I would get there.
The NEC would address any kind of penetrations, because anytime you penetrate based on NEC, you have to maintain the fire rating of that penetration of the wall you're penetrating, whether it's fire caulking, the conduit, if you're running through a 2-hour wall, or a 3-hour wall, you basically, the NEC requires that you maintain that fire protection.
Where does it say that in this?
This isn't addressing the penetrations. This is only addressing just the wiring. I mean, if you start pulling everything out of the NEC to fill this proposal would be 20 pages long, trying to identify like what those are. I mean, that's the L&I inspector, the building inspector, the HJs, when they inspect for that. I mean, this is specifically addressing detection and control circuits that are part of a fire alarm system. The workman, this isn't compromising that's anything in the NEC or compromising anything that's in the building code or that requires us to maintain those penetrations, or the fire rating for those penetrations.
In the building code, it does.
Yeah, but this isn't changing that verbiage. This isn't addressing that. This is just for the raceway, the requirement, because the raceway has no fire protection. I mean, raceway doesn't provide us fire protection.
Right, that's one. Just for my clarification, just for my education. So it says here of not less than 1 hour. So let's say you have a 2-hour rated assembly. Can you put a 1 hour penetration through a 2-hour rated assembly then for this section?
No, you still have to have you still have to maintain the fire rating of the penetration. This is more like for running horizontal through a building. and you're running a bunch of wire, and that wiring right now is required. It's not being enforced, and it typically is. I mean, there's a lot of places it's not done. It's required to be in a raceway, and that raceway doesn't serve any purpose. It's not a fire rating that it's achieving. It's basically mechanical protection. There's no fire rating associated with EMT or liquid tide or anything that's considered a raceway by NEC. That's where it's defined as a raceway. That adds a fire rating to it. It's for mechanical protection only. The assembly is what gives you the fire rating, or if you're using like a CIC, a UL listed circuit integrity system, then that has a different application when you can run it and where it's required.
And you're saying from this change, from the code that's written now, when I read it, when it says in 909.12.1, it gives you to UL864 and a list of smoke control. Don't you kind of get the same thing, or do you not?
Sorry, my connection broke up. I didn't catch what you said.
Oh, to me, when I read the code, I'm just asking, just for mine, I think you get to the same answer based on what the code says now. Maybe I'm reading it wrong because it tells you the control unit has to comply with UL 864 and all this stuff in 9012, and it still kicks you to NFPA 70. Don't you get that anyway? I mean,
No,
when I
because
look,
the NEC doesn't address smoke control system, it addresses critical system,
I'm
addresses heating and
talking
ventilation.
NFPA, not NEC, NFPA.
You said NFPA 70, that's NEC. That's the National Electric Code. NFPA 70 is the National Electric Code.
National Electrical Code. And what about UL 864?
That's the listing for the smoke control panel. That's the listing that's required for the UUKL listing is the UL 864 listing.
Okay.
Micah?
Sorry, thanks for all the information. You're give us a lot of information quick. I wish I could testify that fast. I'll check with Ken on this. I guess I'm just kind of, even here on your letter, it talks about the survivability of the smoke control system, which you said this doesn't affect if the survivability requirements are 2 hours in 90920 sections for smoke control system. So I guess when you're going to 1 hour here and 2 hour there, at that point, which would apply? This would only apply to the fire alarm detection and control circuits, but not the other smoke control systems.
The fire alarm.
That's the only where the confusion's coming in.
Yeah,
for me.
because so you got to look at it like this. So a building is required by IBC, the occupancy, to have a fire alarm system. So it has to have detection, it has to have all this stuff. That by itself, it does not require any raceway, does not require survivability. You put the smoke control system in there. So the detectors, the circuits that control the HVAC system, that falls under 90925. That is required to be 2 hour protected, all the way from the control panel where it sits, all the way up to the ventilation fans, the dampers, anything that is associated with the smoke control still has to have a minimum of 2 hour protection. The enclosures we run in, whether it's using listed wiring for it, whether it's using interior stairwells, but that listing is still addressed in 90920 as part of the ventilation system requirements, not the fire alarm and detection system requirements. Because a detector doesn't need to last 2 hours. It basically needs to go off, and once it's gone off, it's activated the smoke control system, and the smoke control system still has its 2 hour protection and operates like it should. It's intended and designed for.
Okay, that may be helpful. Again, I think it's going to come back to IBC tag, and hopefully by then I will meet with Ken and get a better education. I think I know where you're going, but I'm still failing to see how the correlation between this section 90912 and 90920 gets you to two different places for survivability of those systems. Although you're saying it does for these specific circuits for detection, but your code language doesn't really say that to me, and I'm not sure that it's going to be clear in the code change. That's all. So it's not that it's wrong. I just would probably just need some additional clarity in there that we may need to address in the proposal. Thanks,
on the
Dave.
letter that he's showing right now, if you scroll to the bottom of it, it shows the ICC Council's reasoning, like their reasoning for it. It's actually highlighted, clarifying what there is like, because like one example they give is a fire pump. I mean, a fire pump's a critical system. There's no 2 hour protection required for that for the circuits feeding, and it's 1 hour protection. So in the same sense, the fire alarm system that's serving it would have that same type of protection.
And what was the vote for this proposal? For this
13 to
F1?
0.
Okay.
Do you know if this had a public comment that went through at Long Beach by chance? And if not, I'll look that up because we were there.
No,
Ken
I
would
don't
know
think
because he helped me.
yeah, I don't think it did, Micah.
All right.
I'm the one that when David and I started discussing this, that's when I looked forward to, hey, what's going on in the 27 code, and found this code change proposal that addressed everything that he was talking about. So
Okay.
thought that since it already went through the Fire Code Action Committee, it was discussed in length. A lot of the things that you were bringing up were brought up during that. So I thought everything was pretty much hashed out. This would be a relatively easy one to get through.
You
It's
know I'm
just,
gonna throw a wrench in everything you do, Ken.
I know, it's just one of my MOs. I like taking stuff that's already gone through the development process as far as it can and bring it early into Washington. And beg, borrow, and steal from what other people's have done, such as Jeff Shapiro, which hopefully he'll be speaking a little bit later on a couple of the other proposals. But no, I think we're okay with this proposal, but that's just my opinion, and everybody else has got their own thing.
Now, Dustin, can I ask a question? Since we got both committees here, is this something we can vote on now, or is this just for education stuff?
Well, I would like to come out of this with everybody feeling like the language in this proposal works in everywhere it's going. So if IFC's happy with it, I'm happy that they're happy with it, but I want to make sure that the IBC tag is okay with this language being proposed within the building code. And I want the IMC representatives here to be happy with what's proposed within the IMC as well. Before we get too further down the road, Russell, I saw your hand up, but you keep putting it down when we get more conversation. Did you have something you'd like to add to this one?
Yeah, I was just going to touch on some of the points that David brought up, but he kept bringing them up, so I put my hand down. But as a person that does fire alarm design, this would be great to have added because it is an issue with especially 1 hour buildings that have the stairwell pressurization. A lot of smoking, like I think Bob Long is a proponent of not having to do any sort of fire rating coming out of the stairwell. The stairwell is protected, and then you, like David said, you get into the level it's serving, and all that device has to do is go off in a fire, and then its job is done. So it would be a great thing to lower cost on the 1 hour mid-rise buildings.
Heard. And then back to your point, Hoyt, I'm looking to make sure that when we take these back to the individual tags, that hopefully there's no changes that happen for those specific codes to this proposal. So I would ask the group if there's concerns, is there any changes we could make to address the concerns that folks are having? I hear Ken has vetted this one pretty well through the ICC process. And we're, as I understand, just bringing 2027 language back into our Washington 2024 code with something that's been vetted mostly at the ICC level. So if there's concerns, I'd like to maybe make revisions to this proposal to address them so that we come back with the same proposal at each tag in the coming meetings. Tim.
So first off, I'm hearing what everybody's saying about the intent of why this code change is going through, and so I don't necessarily have an issue with it, but also hearing some of the concerns, that number 4 seems to be the concerning one. And could it be as simple as adding something on there that says, or as, as required elsewhere in the code? And that could be, if you're penetrating a 2-hour assembly, you might need to make sure your penetration is right, which would be required elsewhere in the code. And then also that survivability concept that Mike has brought up, also being addressed elsewhere in the code. It could provide that clarification that people know there is other provisions that could govern.
Does anybody have any comment or rebuttal on Tim's comments there?
Yeah, I'm with Tim too. What I find strange on this when I'm looking at the code before. I'm not, when it says you gotta meet one of the, doesn't it say meet one of the following? So here's the question when I read this, the 902.12.1. If I fully enclose within a continuous raceway, I'm done. Right? Because it says detection control shall be protected using one of the following methods. But the way the code is written now, or the way it was, that's part of the code things. And then it seems like you would want 2, 3, 4, and 5 to be 1, 2, 3, and 4 with one of these methods. Am I reading this wrong? If you are within a continuous raceway, are you maintaining all the protections? I always thought you had to be in a continuous raceway anyway, because that's what it was in the statement, in the original statement of the code change proposal. Maybe I'm just being brain dead here. I'm just seeing how do you get 2, 3, 4, and 5 if all you really have to do is just use one of the following. I thought you had to protect it. That's basically what I'm saying. I want to make sure we're protecting this area the way it's written.
Kailesh?
I heard, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I heard this is a 27 IMC language or
Uh, Ken or
propose.
David, would you guys comment on
Yeah.
where the
Yeah,
language came from?
this is Ken. It's F139-24. It's a code change proposal that's been put together for the 2027 International Fire Code, International Building Code, and International Mechanical Code, and it's gone
So-
through that code development process.
Is that been accepted?
It has not been voted on by the membership, no. It's only
So-
gone through the hearing process so far.
So can we wait until it is accepted?
Well, part of this is looking at getting this in within the timeframes that we have within the state of Washington to get code change proposals submitted. And like Dustin said, if there's something that occurs at that national level that all of a sudden this gets turned down, somebody brings up something that this is horribly wrong, that we would take that information and look at, changing or modifying this proposal if necessary. We can't wait, and that is because of just the time frame that we've been put in here in Washington State.
Right. So to speak to the timeframes, if we move this forward to our proposed notice or put it through in a CR 102 for public comment, and something were to happen at the national level, or we get public comment that just says this is horrible and everybody agrees with it, there is room to modify this, hopefully just editorially if we're going to maintain the proposal. Or we can strike it before we do our final adoption if this doesn't work and is not a good idea down the road. But looking at what we have presented here, it looks like it's it's vetted, but it's not adopted at that national level yet. So it's not the end all say all if we move this forward at the tag level and get it into CR 102 at the council level here. The anticipation is to get that done by December 20th and begin the public comment period on that date. So I heard, Tim, you had maybe a suggestion for the language in the number 4 there, referencing, other code sections. It sounds like that might address several concerns here within the room. I'm happy to draft that into this proposal language and save it as a revision. Would you maybe help me remember exactly what you were proposing for language in there, if you're still into that?
Sure, and having reviewed it even since then, I think it might take a little bit more thought, but the premise is or as required elsewhere in the code being added on, but that might cause a little bit more revisions, and it might also need to be modified in number 2.
Yeah. And that would need to go onto the number 4 within the mechanical code as well, I'm presuming.
By all accounts, to do this correlation effort, yes.
So we got that there. And then in number 2, would the same statement need to be added on just at the end, or is there something different that you're seeing that might need to go in there?
No, it'd be the same thing, wouldn't it?
It's essentially the same thing
Okay.
with possibly some minor clarification language.
Okay, so text shown in red is the changes that we're discussing here today to bring back to the individual tags.
I guess the question would be is if was it David Mao? Is that
Yes.
right? Yeah. If he feels this added too much confusion and people asking kind of, well, what do you mean by that? Um, but
I think it's
But yeah.
great. I mean, these systems should be fully vetted. I mean, the whole design process and how they're implemented should be fully vetted. So if you're telling elsewhere in the code, then they should be fully vetted that way. 100% on board with that.
Okay, Ben?
Yeah, I guess Dustin, maybe a question for you and staff is where we make references to the code, do we typically specify, I think typically we specify this code or we identify specific codes as I believe the intent to identify for the IBC and IFC language that it's referencing back to that code itself or other codes as well. And then similar with the mechanical code, what is the intent of that statement? And do we need to make it more specific, or is there a way to do that without adding too much language? Thanks.
This is how I mean, that it's pretty much standard notice when it says in the codes, because you go in, it's all the model codes that you have where it's, if you say in this code, that means it's only in the IMC, or in the IFC. So that's, I think it's done otherwhere the same thing. If it is specifically you want to reference to a certain one, then you should reference to sections. I believe you want to keep it kind of general, like it's stated right now. But I mean, either way, you get the same thing. Whatever's easiest for other people. So,
Gotcha. Tim, what are your thoughts on that?
I wasn't sure if you maybe wanted to go first on, what are, if there is any past practice that can be kind of leaned on.
On past practice, I might lean out and ask Micah. He seems to be our resident code language specialist. But as far as past practice, it seems like we do want to specify if we're talking about this code or all codes, and maybe if in this particular instance we might, as required elsewhere in the Washington building code, which kind of references all of our codes. But I will refer to this group as far as the recommendation. I don't think there's any hard fast rule for us in this instance.
It'd be my opinion that all roads lead to Rome, right? So if it said this code, where you're applying the IBC, it would be applicable. Where you're applying the IFC, where you're applying the IMC, it would be applicable. Or we could use the Washington State Code like you mentioned, which encompasses all of them. I don't think there's a preference, so it's just kind of what our past practice has been. I would want to try to stay consistent.
So would
This
changing
is Jeff Shapiro. Can I weigh in? I don't have a hand raise feature because I'm calling on my phone while I'm driving.
by all means, Jeff, go ahead.
First of all, I'm going to take issue with Micah being the code text expert, and he's on the call with me. We're going to have to debate that. I'll just point out that was supposed to be funny, by the way.
I laughed. You're good. I totally got
Thank
it.
you. There you go. This issue comes up every single time you have a requirement in the code and something else regulates a similar or. So when you're talking about penetrating a fire separation and you have another requirement in the code that deals with protecting something that's going to that fire separation, it's always going to end up with, well, does one overrule the other? And the answer is yes. The code deals with that in chapter 1 under conflicts. I don't know how Washington may or may not have amended that. It makes it clear that specific applies over general and where there's not specific most restrictive applies. It's going to go through the that reference. Then the question is, are 49 other states that may not amend this wrong, or the ICC, did they somehow miss it? If it wasn't brought up, I think people understood the idea of how you deal in a code with sections of the code that overlap. Me personally, I think it's entirely clear without adding the reference to this code or other codes or any other code, because whatever's in the document always applies. Whatever is in the other document always applies. And from a perspective of a code user, you kind of frustrate and confuse people because you're going to show that Washington took the time to amend this section. And people are going to try to figure out, well, why did they amend it? The other part of it is, if you're just saying anything else in the code, people are left wondering, well, gee, they must have had something in mind. I wonder what else they were concerned about. Or if you refer to the Washington code, then they're going to think, man, there must be a Washington amendment somewhere that I need to pick up on. I think the requirement stands on its own. I don't think it needs to have that additional reference. You could put that in every section of the code, but we don't do it because every section of the code applies. That's my 2 cents. Sorry, I sat in the background and I was hoping you'd reach that resolution, but since you didn't, that's my perspective.
Thank you, Jeff.
And on top of that, Justin, in other sections, like in 302, it says provisions of chapter 4 and elsewhere in this code. That's the way it says it in other sections throughout the IBC. It doesn't say or is required. You see, you have elsewhere in the code. They do have it in other sections in the code. I agree with Jeff. You could probably put that everywhere. I think users of the code kind of know, you have to apply it everywhere in the code. So so I'm just saying it is used other places. If you look in 302.2, use designation. So.
Okay. So hearing that it is used in certain places in the code, or in the codes, I should say, is the language that we have here in red, should it be elsewhere in this code, or is in the code appropriate?
Well, in chapter 3, in the use designation, it says in accordance with revisit chapter 4 and elsewhere in this code. It says in this code. If you want to be consistent, you would say the same as that. If you want to put that in there, so.
Gotcha. Ken?
Yeah, I just question it like Jeff did, is why are we even putting it in here to begin with? It is going to cause some confusion of why we did an additional amendment to this section. So this would just be an amendment that we, several code cycles down the road, would just be carrying through, but everybody be looking to us for what's the justification. And if we're not able to put that in writing right now, why we want to do this, I think it's not needed. So that would just be my vote.
And to the point, if it's a general section of the code, yeah, you're gonna point to all the stuff that follows and the other part of the code. That's all fine. This is a specific section. It's not like a chapter scope or something where we're trying to make sure that people understand that the broad requirements here, how they fit into the code. What you're working on is a specific section of the code. And yeah, there probably are examples you could pull up that might point similarly, but they're far outnumbered by the code sections that don't say anything.
Yeah, I want to just emphasize on Jeff. I'm in agreement with them. I'm not really sure we really need or as required elsewhere in the code. It's kind of implied anyway. It just adds. Any user of the code knows if it's somewhere else required in the code and more restrictive, you have to go by that. So,
Tim?
Yeah, the suggestion on the screen, I think, was to address people's concerns about the language. Having it not been voted through at the ICC hearing, this would be a way to still get it through, even with concerns, and then it can still be modified at the State Building Code Council. But I agree with the concerns, and that was one of the issues I raised, is if we thought it was going to create more confusion. But I will kind of call your attention to number 2, where it does say cables used for serviceability of required critical circuits. So we have one provision that says, in this case, not less than 1 hour, and then we have 909.12 or 909.20 that says serviceability for smoke control is required 2 hours. So is it more specific? Yeah, I think so. Would somebody stop here as soon as they they saw this section? Possibly. So, um, there's still some minor concerns, but I'm comfortable voting it through, which we're not voting today, but without the language in there at all. I just thought it was a good way to address anybody's concerns for a code change that's not fully vetted yet.
Okay. As far as votes and things go, I was hoping to just call some voice get some consensus by voice affirmation on this one. So if we're ready, does the group is the group okay with this proposal going back to the individual tags as drafted? And I'll just call for everybody in support, please say aye.
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 Is there anybody in opposition?
Nay, this is Ken. I thought the proposal that Tim just talked about, he's okay with striking the or as required elsewhere in the code.
That's correct.
Okay.
So
And-
Yeah, I thought
So I
that
think
was
you're-
the original proposal is what we were voting on, not the amended one.
Okay, if that's what the consent, let me change it to what, so we can see what we're talking about on screen. And then we will take another voice vote to align with what the thought was there. All right, so folks present in this room, if you are okay with the tags moving forward with this proposal as shown on screen, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody who is in opposition to that? Alrighty, so with that, I will bring these back to the individual tags with the recommendation from this work group that the language presented in this proposal be what is adopted into the 3 different codes here. Does that work for the group? I guess I'm not calling for a vote, so I'll assume that since we did vote, it does. So we'll be done with 24 GP1-074. We'll bring this back to the IFC, IBC, and IMC for final recommendations for adoption to the committees. And if you are part of the mechanical code tag, you're welcome to hang around, but the rest of our agenda today just deals with the International Building Code and the International Fire Code. All right, getting to the next one, we got 24 GP1-091, revision number 2. This one, you were working on, Ken. Do you want to speak to it a little bit before we dive into comments?
Sure. So this one is one that I started working on after talking to some people in the building industry regarding 1 and 2 family dwellings and specifically townhouses when they needed to go to 4 stories based on their site conditions. And they got pushed out of the residential code and pushed into the building code, the International Building Code. Under the International Residential Code, when they were required to sprinkler, they were okay to sprinkler with a NFPA 13D system. But as soon as they got pushed to the building code because they're out of the scope of the residential code because they're more than 3 stories, the building code tables pushed them to a 13R system. And the cost of now taking this 4-story townhouse, single family dwelling duplex, and to put in a 13R system was just, making it very difficult to consider these houses affordable. So I tried to come up with some different language in a couple different areas. And the first was just the 903.2.8.4, 903.2.8.5. And it just doesn't do everything that I needed to. So that's the reason I looked at revising the tables a little bit. And the tables tried to simplify the table change instead of doing a bunch of strikeouts. And this might actually make it more confusing, but I decided to put in a footnote for the 504.3 table in the building code under 13D and just put in the footnote J that just specifically talks about one dwelling unit, two dwelling units, or a townhouse. And I did not, I was really trying to carve out not using all group R3, all group R4, and specifically only looking at the one dwelling unit, two dwelling units in a townhouse, and trying to somewhat stay within like the scoping of NFPA 13D, if that makes sense or not. And then in addition, on the next table, the 504.4, added in a 13D that wasn't there for the R2 townhouse, since the townhouse is considered an R2 in the building code, and just allowed a townhouse to go to 4 stories, and just put in the footnote for that also, and then also included in that table that footnote J regarding the R3, and that the R3 is only for the one dwelling unit or two dwelling units. The number of stories above grade plane may be increased to 4. So what I've done is I've asked the building industry to speak about this, the fire sprinkler industry to speak about this. Jeff Shapiro, who's also, I've used some of his language that he used for a kind of a different code change proposal that just talked about how NFPA 13D systems should be, work just fine for 4 stories. In addition, how the code has already reached out to, occupied attics and looked at allowing 13D to go there. So I've invited the experts. I'm just been kind of this conduit. And I think also some of our past fire marshals in Redmond, I think Todd Short might even be available. So I'm just wondering if we can get any further discussion on this. This has not been heard with a presentation from me on this at the fire code or building code tags individually. And so I thought this would be the best way to probably get this rolling, is to get anybody's concerns over allowing a 13D system instead of the 13R system. And with also the caveat that this shouldn't be changing anything with other tables in the building code. So if there's an opening protective table, maybe in chapter 7, that talks about this, the building needs to be a 13 system or 13R system. This doesn't mean that overrules that. This is only talking about number of stories and height. And that's all I had. So I'm open up for any questions. And if anybody else wants to make any comments, go for it. Thanks.
This is Hoyt Teeter. So basically what you want to end up changing, correct me if I'm wrong, you're basically changing the R3, right, and 2 family, and you want to put that footnote I that says instead of being 3, you could go to 4. Is that correct on type 5?
So yes, the scoping of, so I didn't want it to encompass all R3 occupancies. I only wanted to, in the building code, encompass the one dwelling unit, two dwelling units, or and then when it comes to R2, just the townhouse portion of an R2, not all R2 type occupancies, if that makes sense.
Ricky?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ricky Campbell. I'm with UA Local 699, Fire Sprinkler Fitters out of Seattle. I do sit on the ISAG as a manufacturing position. I'm in favor of this. Concerns that I have about this, with the height of a 4-story building, 45 feet could put on close to 20 psi of head pressure on these systems. If so my biggest concern is a lot of these systems are installed with a flow through or passive perch design, and they use the typical water meter out front that is very restrictive. I believe we can get around this. I mean, with design or with a tank, pump in a tank. The pump in a tank will guarantee that you'll have that discharge rate of 10 minutes for the 13D system. I believe it would work really well for that system. That being said, 13R systems are designed for a half an hour discharge rate. So there's a difference there. So all in more, add to it, the fire barrier between units would have to be, adequate. So that's kind of my 2 cents of it. I'm in favor of it. Obviously, the AHJ's approving the design. Hopefully they're taking into account of the residual flowing pressure. If it meets that flowing pressure, then all is good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky. Tim?
I guess I'm just gonna maybe throw this out there as if it's been thought through, because I haven't fully thought through it. But the things that kind of come up in my head when we start to increase stories is first one is number of exits off of those stories. It's kind of clear what we do with R2s, but R3s and R4s have always kind of been exempted, and they're always just allowed one exit. I just wonder how much more travel distance we're possibly adding to a fourth story by still only allowing one exit and kind of downgrading the system to a 13D. So there's that concern, and then the other one that popped in my mind would have been, similarly, we have rescue requirements where I've seen the diagrams of a ladder leaned up against a structure, and the 3-story was to enable ladder rescues from windows. So with this adding that additional story on what that kind of did for that as well. So throw it out there as questions for now and kind of mild concerns just to make sure it's been thought about.
Thank you, Tim. Ken, do you want to respond to that, or should we go through the rest of the comments before?
I would suggest going through the rest of the comments and then see what we have to talk about.
Gotcha. Thank you. Tracy?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy Moore with Moore Fire Protection. I think we do more of these townhouses than almost anybody in the state. I'm a fire sprinkler contractor. I've been doing work in the state since 1987. So this is a big concern for master builders and the developers in the city. And I think, it's, to me, I look at it as a single family dwelling, a townhome. All that's necessary is a 13D. They're very, very effective. One head, most likely, is all that's going to go off, which is 13 gallons per minute. Like Ricky said, we're concerned about the height, but that's why we calculate everything. We're a big fan of bucket testing, which I know Seattle doesn't require, but we do a lot of testing on our own to make sure the system performs adequately. And the thing for me is, you go to a 13R, you still have a single family living in that townhome. What really comes into effect here is the water supply. So by requiring a 13R, there's a lot of areas in Seattle and in the state that have poor water. It takes twice the amount of water to do a 13R system. And you're really not getting any, you're getting that longer duration, but the fire is going to be put out by one head, maybe two heads, in a rare occasion. And so what we've run into a lot of times is the water supply requirements for a 13R on these townhomes can really double, triple, quadruple the cost to these builders and the end users, the homeowners that buy these things, because they're so exorbitant. And by going to a 13D, it enables us to use a pump and tank. Again, like Ricky had mentioned, we can't use a single family residential 13D pump and tank in a 13R. So you'll end up, we have a bunch of these right now that are little townhomes, 3-plexes, 4-plexes, that we can't, we end up having to go to a, $60,000, plus pump and tank to make these things work because we're out of the 13D. So by going with the 13D on a townhome, again, a single family residence, we're providing very great protection. It's excellent. It works really well. And we're able to provide a cost-effective way to keep this affordable housing rule that we're trying to attain going. So I'm a huge in favor of this. I think we've been overkilling a lot of stuff that just doesn't need, it doesn't add enough protection to justify the extra expense that goes into it. So there's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Tracy. Wait.
Yeah. This is Tom Hoyt from City of Tacoma. You know, this is going to be used throughout the whole state. And I haven't really seen in the justification that they submitted that that it justifies increasing that number of stories that is that way. I would have liked it more been here at a national level and be discussed more. When you're looking at something for the whole state, they got different response periods for different areas around the state. So if this does come to vote, I would vote against it. So I don't think it should be approved. So I still, all I see is they're just saying it's added cost, but I don't see how there is a better safety system for when you're using the higher sprinkler system than the less, and the justification doesn't seem valid to me. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Hoyt. Patrick?
Yes, thank you. This is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington. I know I've talked about this before in a couple of tags, but support this proposal. Thank you to Ken for bringing this forward. What this is going to do is it's a growing sort of niche case of where townhomes are going up to 4 stories, but it's going to allow a similar level of safety to a 13R system, but allow a little bit lower installation cost and a lower maintenance cost for these types of buildings. And that's going to help make them a little more affordable and make it easier to build this than otherwise would be allowed. Some of how that comes out is the installation cost is lower, but then also my understanding is the 13R system requires an annual inspection that can cost around $600. The 13D doesn't have to do that that same kind of annual inspection. They can still do voluntary inspections and things. And then also, since townhomes are individual units, and one concern of these systems is if the temperature goes below 40 degrees, it can freeze over and the pipes can burst, and that can cause problems. The 13D system is each unit is separate. The water controls are separate for it. So because, townhomes can be occupied individually, if you have one townhome that's being occupied and, the heat is going, but another one's not occupied and the heat could fall in the unit, you can shut off that system and drain it to prevent any damage, whereas that is not possible to do in the same way with 13R. So we think for this case, it once again, similar level of safety, and assuming you get the code language all worked out so that it fits everybody. And it's going to allow lower installation costs and lower maintenance costs for these types of buildings. So we're very supportive of that and thinks this is a great thing for housing affordability in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Micah?
Thanks, everybody. And I'm not opposed to this, but I think there's some clarifications. I know that we just developed a policy for this in Seattle and worked with Ken on that. But again, Ken, I'm the same concerns I had in our policy and our language we want to develop is the same concerns I have here. Yes, we heard from Mr. Moore that they do the calculations. However, that's not a requirement for 13D systems. You can use the standard piping design and flow design, all those other things without calculating them. So yes, calculating them does work, but it's not required if you're less than 40 feet, which is fine if you're less than 40 feet, but you're allowing these to go to 60 at this point. Then the unfortunate side of this is I've heard a lot of townhouse. Patrick did just mention the townhouse unit. Townhouse unit is a single family. A townhouse is 3 units, which is an R2. So again, I don't think this fully addresses everything that needs to be addressed. Although I'm on board with where you're going with it, I still have the same concerns. Again, a 13R is not the same as a 13D, but yet you are making them 100% equivalent in this instance at this point. So my question, as I asked before, what's the relevance of a 13R at this point if you can just do it all with a 13D in the same exact structures? Thanks.
Russell?
Yeah, so this Chris Russell, and I'm with the American Fire Sprinkler Association, the Pacific Northwest chapter. And in response to Micah's thing, I was going to talk about this anyway. That was one of my concerns about the passive fire protection exceptions that you get from 13R in the code. And looking through Chapter 7, all those references are specific to 903.312 for 13R systems. So going to a 13D system, you wouldn't get any of the reduction in fire resistance or the non-contiguous fire barriers. The building just wouldn't qualify for those exceptions. So I think that would be the difference between the 13D and the 13R is the level of construction and the passive fire protection. And then as far as water goes, I would recommend doing a bucket test on a system like this, because you're not using a listed fire pump, and you're going to a 2-head calc, and you're going to a 60-foot max, and just making sure that you're getting the water there, especially since I believe it's the Washington Home Fire Sprinkler Coalition best practice recommends doing that throughout the state, and most jurisdictions do it. So it's just a thought.
Are people still on?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
I think
waiting on
Dustin
David. Or Dustin.
seems to have gone blank.
Yeah, I'm just go ahead and go. I think Dustin just went off, but I'll just provide my comments to this. I'm again amazed at the desire to reduce life safety to address cultural issues. We have done enough trying to get residential sprinklers into single family homes, and it's a different level of hazard. I agree that yes, that 1 or 2 heads can put out or at least control the fire on an P13D system. But a 13R system, the height of the building, the additional combustibles are going to be in this facility, the exiting distance for people to get out of the building. The 13R is designed to put out the fire. The 13D is designed to control it so people can get out of the building. I think it's going to create a higher risk for responders in dealing with the taller structures. And my other big concern about this is going to be a Western Washington driven push, because this is not a problem in Central and Eastern Washington. Don't push your requirements on the rest of the state when we're not capable and available to be able to have the resources to handle these taller buildings with a number of occupants in them. It just makes no sense to me that we'd be doing this for the entire state. Please reconsider that. I would vote against this.
This is Jeff Shapiro. I can't hold my hand up, but I'll go when everybody else is done.
I think you're good, Jeff. No one else has a hand up.
Okay, couldn't see. First, to be clear, I, for the most part, just do pro bono type work and very big in advocacy for residential fire safety, including fire sprinklers. I do have a consulting arrangement with NFSA, but they're not the ones pushing this, it's me. So I have a proposal into the ICC that would have been already heard, but they split off IBC General into Group B. So my proposal was held until the beginning of the 2025 cycle. It'll be going before the General Committee in April. What I have put in, and I don't know what you're looking at because I'm driving, I can't see, but my proposal sounds like it's quite a bit less complicated than what Ken submitted. And basically what it does is it permits type 5B construction to go to 4 stories for R3 occupancies under the IBC. And my logic for justifying that is several-fold. First of all, to be clear, you can go 4 stories with 13D today. 13D does not have a height limit or a story limit. It's for 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouse units, and it's for 13D systems to be used. And case in point, the IRC today allows a 3-story townhouse or dwelling unit plus a habitable attic. And honestly,
We lost Dustin, now we lost Jeff.
sorry for the navigation in the background if you hear that.
We didn't hear it. We just heard you talk.
Okay. So first of all, again, the argument over 13D 4 stories is moot. You can do 13D 4 stories today, and you can do it in the IRC 3 stories plus a habitable attic, which when you look from the outside of the building, that's a 4-story building. It can have a bedroom on the 4th floor. It can be pretty substantial size on the 4th floor. And I was able to get it into the code that if you go above the 3rd floor with a habitable attic, you do have to sprinkler. So that is in the model code, even for jurisdictions that choose not to require sprinklers under the IRC. It's a line item requirement that if you want to put a habitable attic above 3rd floor, you do have to sprinkler as a townhouse. So at this point, the IRC says you can build, for what is, all intents and purposes, a 4-story townhouse with a 13D system. And the problem we've got is you go to the IBC, and the IBC says you can do a 4-story townhouse out of 13D, but it's got to be type 5A construction because you need the extra story to get to 4 stories, or you got to go to 13R. So that's where the bugaboo is. Even though 13D is recognized as the appropriate limit in chapter 5 that basically says, but wait a minute, if you want more height, you're going to have to put in a 13R system. So where did that come from? Well, I was there when all this went down. There was a consultant named Rick Thornberry who in the UBC process, when 13R and 13D were just coming out, he was successful at getting a change into the IBC that basically said you get no trade-offs or incentives for anything other than NFPA 13 because these systems are new and untested and we want to sell more concrete and masonry buildings. And they were partnered with the whole fire resistive material industry. So, you know, when you require 1-hour construction, you sell more expensive sheetrock, you sell dampers, you sell fire caulk, and all the other stuff that goes into that. And honestly, there's a very big money industry behind getting more fire resistance into buildings that doesn't like to see fire sprinklers get trade-offs. But the fact is, that was now 30 years ago, actually more than 30 years ago, when all this was going down in the code. And we didn't have the data on the performance of NFPA 13D at the time on large scale, and not much on 13R. So you could make that argument, and it did, base it on, hey, we don't know how well these systems are going to work. We need to see performance data. Well, here it is 30 plus years later, we've got performance data, and the data clearly shows any NFPA sprinkler reports you look at, the safest occupancies with regard to sprinkler operations are residential. And I looked at this when I was working on the multifamily stuff years ago. And if the system is operational, the success rate, I think, was 92%. The fire, maybe higher, I can't remember the number off the top of my head. But it's way different than what you see in other occupancies, because these occupancies, particularly townhouses, unlike single family dwellings where you get a lot of cathedral and complicated ceilings, townhouse occupancies are usually smooth, flat ceilings. And that's where we get the best sprinkler performance, is a low ceiling that's smooth and flat. You put that in combination with a quick response residential sprinkler, and the sprinkler is going to operate and control the fire. And at that point, the fire doesn't know what building it's burning in. The the sprinkler puts the water on the fire, and the fire dynamics say it goes out, whether it's 13R or 13D, one or two sprinklers is going to do this. And I don't think the 30-minute water supply buys you anything, nor do I think going to type 5A construction buys you anything, because you can use 13D today with 5A construction, but nobody wants to do that, obviously. So bottom line, I really felt like the code unnecessarily penalized the IBC townhouse occupancies that are gone to 4 stories when an IRC building can already do it with 13D. So my code change proposal goes in and edits the height and area tables to essentially allow the 4 stories to be built now out of type 5B construction. It is a huge issue, as you've heard, and I'm not going to sit here and argue the cost, but the cost is a huge issue, and the complexity of the sprinkler system is an issue. The inspection of the sprinkler system is an issue, and I'm all about cost-effective fire safety. And to me, this really buys you nothing with respect to safety, especially considering you can already do it under the IBC or IRC. The only other thing I'd say to the point, I'd love to see this go through. Actually, I'd love to see what I proposed to the IBC go through in Washington. I don't know that it needs to be more complicated than that. But I also would love to see Washington adopt this at the same time that you revisit the 4-unit townhouse exception, because you're giving the industry a huge incentive here with 13D on these townhouses. And it would be really nice to see the state do what Seattle did and just require all townhouses to be sprinklered, because they all have the similar risk. You stack more units on the end. So I see in Washington potentially attaching those two, which wouldn't be done at the national level. It already requires all townhouses to be sprinklered, but the change is justified by data. It doesn't, it's not unjustified based on safety. And I really think Washington should move forward with it. That's it.
All right, so this is Dustin. I'm back calling in, so I don't have any view of what's on screen or anybody's hands up. So it'll be hard for me to moderate a meeting with my current condition. But Rosanna, are you currently sharing screen?
Yes, I do have it sharing.
Okay. I guess we'll continue conversation, and I'll have to rely on you guys to moderate and, you know, go in the order that the hands are raised. Or Rosanna, could you maybe moderate the speakers a little bit? And I'm going to continue trying to get logged in on my computer, but until then, I'm kind of at a loss for keeping this meeting going in any capacity where I can help.
I will do my best, so everyone have patience with me, please.
Okay. Sorry for throwing you in there like that, Rosanna.
That's all right.
Rosanna, this is Todd Short.
Yes.
I'm a former fire marshal for the city of Redmond, Washington, who was the first jurisdiction that passed a residential ordinance for all single homes to be fire sprinklered, as well as all townhomes. It's interesting to listen to the conversation about this proposal. I guess after listening to everything, I would encourage this group to figure something out that would be agreeable to get passed within the state of Washington. I think the benefits of allowing these, what are essentially an additional story to a single family home or a townhome unit, would be a significant step forward with our housing crisis and the affordability issues that we have. Regardless of whether this is in Eastern Washington or Western Washington, I think we should be able to figure out something that allows this proposal to go forward. I am in agreement, as was my jurisdiction, that a bucket test was required for any single family 13 system. And I would encourage that this proposal carry with that. That is one of the best practices that's been unanimously in favor within our state of Washington. It was interesting to hear the concern about the rescue window being on the 4th story And knowing that there's many jurisdictions within the state that don't even have a single family home 3-story with fire sprinkler requirements. So I think most ladder trucks would reach a 4-story. However, the whole issue is that the fire sprinkler system in a 13D application would provide the safety and escape for the occupants, or at least hold the fire back for the first responders to go in and execute a rescue, whether they had to use a ladder or go inside the house. I think there's always going to be within our state the ability to be more restrictive for those jurisdictions that just can't seem to want to accept this. But I think the bulk of the state would benefit greatly from having the fire and life safety aspect. Just because this 4-story is in a single family home is necessary or is present, that doesn't devalue the 13D system, and nor does it mean that we should overly complicate the fire sprinkler systems with alarm systems and annual inspections. So I'm in favor of this, but I also recognize that there's a lot of great people on this that have differing views. I would just say that I think it's time that we figure out how to do this in this state to get an advantage on affordable housing. And so I would encourage all the TAG members to roll up their sleeves and figure it out. Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like we don't have any other hands up. Dustin?
So if there's no other hands up, I guess, is this group comfortable with the language proposed going forward and being adopted by both the fire tag and the building tag? I guess I'd be asking for comments on that. I missed several minutes of conversation there. There's been lots of comments on what we are asking here, and so this hasn't been voted on for recommendation to adopt by either of the tags so far. And so is this group comfortable with this proposal moving forward? I guess all those in favor say aye.
Oh, Dustin, we do have a few hands that just raised.
Oh, okay. Then go ahead and call on them in order, Rosanna.
All right, Ken?
So since I'm the proponent of this, Dustin, I want to take all of the feedback that I just heard. I've already been reached out by other people on the call that would like to work on the proposal a little bit more, look for a little bit more collaboration on it, work a little bit more with, WABO and other representatives, and just try to clean it up with any of the issues before we just try to move this forward. I don't want a contentious vote on this, that it would be a split decision, so to speak. So I would like the ability to just work with those individuals and either bring it back to this group or bring it back individually. And just, it would be easy right now just to say, yeah, just try to get a vote on it, move it forward. But I want to see if there's anything that we can clear up. I would rather just work with everybody on anything. And that's the reason we're having this meeting. And this is part of that code development process, is just to listen to people that have concerns. And if some of the code stuff is not clear and too complicated, like Jeff was talking about, maybe we take a look at his proposal. It's not going to be heard till next year, and maybe that's the right direction to go. But the discussion had to be heard regarding going up to 4 stories with 13D systems, and that's what we just did. So that's what I'd be asking of the group, is to allow it to get tweaked a little bit more and worked on. And if anybody's willing to work on it with me, please just reach out to me. My email is on the proposal, and we'll get together as a group and we'll try to clean it up. So I appreciate the time. Thanks.
Gotcha. So just before I call on you, Hoyt, I want to talk about the timelines we're facing here. We're looking at trying to have the council move Group 1 code proposals to CR 102 on Friday, December 20th. Prior to that, we're looking a week prior to December 13th to have a BFRW and MVPE committee meeting to similarly move those proposals to the council. And then the first week of December, from the 2nd to the 6th, we do have availability to have another correlations group meeting. We have availability the rest of this week, and then, you know, next week, I'm really trying to avoid having a lot of stuff planned for next week because we've got some holiday time in there, and I want to be respectful of people's plans. And also, if people aren't available and we can't have quorum at the other tag meetings is an issue, but you know, as far as correlation group, we can still do the work next week. So hearing that the proponent would like to bring it back to this group, and I have a desire to get it done post haste. Does this group have availability to potentially meet Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday next week and give Ken about a week's time to work on this with some volunteers?
Yeah, I can. I'll be available next week.
Okay. What about everybody else?
I'll be available.
Here?
Super important. So for sure, if I'm invited, I'm there.
Yeah,
Well,
I'll be
everybody who's here
available.
now is invited next time.
Yep, I'm available too.
Okay. So then, Ken, I'll get you back with this one, and could I get some volunteers to work with Ken on this one, and I can send a handshake email so you guys can all be in contact? I got Ricky, Tracy, Russell.
Jeff Shapiro is in. Jeff Shapiro is in.
Gotcha, Jeff. All right, I think that works. So Tracy Moore, I don't know if I have your email, Tracy. Did you get a invite through the SBCC for this one, or you just log in via the
No,
online meetings?
I told him, Dustin, this is Ken. I'll
Okay,
I'll
you got
invite.
his contact? Okay,
Yeah, I
and then
did.
Russell, I don't know if I have contact for you on this one.
It's Russell, RUSSELL at ssnw.co.
So SSM as in Mike W.co, or is that N as in
N as in
November?
Nancy.
Okay, gotcha. All right. I will shoot out an email with Ricky, Russell, and Jeff Shapiro on there to Ken. Ken, you have Tracy's contact, and I expect that we'll bring this. We won't have a room, I think, on Tuesday, so it'll be Monday or Wednesday next week. What would be preferable to this group?
Hey, Dustin, real quick. I had my hand up just real quick. I can help too, Ken, if you want. I'm from Tacoma.
Oh, sorry, wait. I thought your hand was up from previous for comment.
Oh, it was.
Does
If you're gonna work
Wednesday is
on it.
probably not gonna be a good day, because I think that's a lot of people maybe leaving work early or something too.
Yeah.
I don't know if we get enough people for Wednesday.
So we'll
If we
shoot for
thought
Monday
to-
then?
Yeah, this is Ken, and Monday is the only day it's gonna actually work for me.
Is there a time that works best for everybody? We can do morning, we can do afternoon. I don't believe I have anything on the schedule at the moment.
I'm open for anything.
Okay.
That's Ricky.
Dave Copat, I'm open all day.
Can we just
Open all day too.
Okay.
Yeah, anytime on Monday is fine with me.
All righty. Well, I'll set it up, and we'll meet back with this one at least on Monday. And then are we done with the discussion here today for this one?
I would think so.
10-4. Monday.
Thanks, everyone. I got to jump to another meeting, but
All right. Thank you, Tracy.
Hey, Jeff, if you're still on the call, the next one's carbon monoxide in your rewrite.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm getting ready to get out of the car, but I'll take the phone with me.
All right, I appreciate it.
So our next
You guys
one-
drove me almost the entire distance from San Antonio to Austin.
That's like 70 miles.
Yeah, this is the.
No, I was in Southwest San Antonio. It's like 90 miles.
And I-35 is a parking lot.
I took the back way. I-35 was a parking lot.
This is the State
All
Building
right.
Code Council podcast.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. All right, we're getting into 24 GP1-071. It's on carbon monoxide, like Ken said. I'm pulling that up, so give me just one moment here.
And I'll just talk while you're pulling it up. So this already went through the fire code tag. Didn't have any opposition to it at all. So Jeff Shapiro was asked after the 2024 IFC was done in this chapter in the 915.1.1 to take a look at it and realize that it was confusing the 24 language and it needed to get rewritten. So what I took is his proposal that already went through the 27 code change development process that strikes a whole bunch of stuff and reorganizes it and makes it some common sense out of it, adds some additional definitions that weren't there before, just simplifies the carbon monoxide section that the 24 code messed up. And the one of the biggest reasons is I don't want us in the state of Washington to be working with a 24 code that has already been noted this section to be broken. I really appreciate all of the time and effort that Jeff spent on fixing this section, and there's no reason that we don't bring it forward now into our 24 code. Some wordsmithing was done with the IBC tag when we got into our one state amendment in the 915.4.2.3, and I'm hoping that Dustin might have that wordsmithing that was talked about, but that would be the only thing that the IBC had brought up, I believe, was just that. But I would really appreciate if Jeff, if you just got a couple minutes just to maybe reiterate or just maybe talk about a little bit more about that whole section of the 24 code.
Yeah, so I was asked by a bunch of interested parties to take the time to review what was in section 915 of the 24 code and try to fix some issues that were identified as problems. And those issues in the 24 code are very significant. They, through poor code writing, add a tremendous amount of cost to installation of CO systems, and they do it in a way that it's really not beneficial to safety. Just based on the way that it's written, just as an example, you would require installation of CO detectors on the ceiling throughout a Home Depot or a Costco or any other building because the code specifies on the ceiling if you have a CO source in the building, which would include a LP powered forklift or LP powered floor buffer. Those are CO sources. So, those requirements are overly burdensome / onerous, and requiring CO detection throughout the building. Likewise, we really need to put the detection at the source, not necessarily every place else in a building that might contain a CO source. So I did go through state of Washington, I think, had some requirements. State of New York had some requirements. I looked through what was in the IFC. I consulted with industry. I consulted with the folks that were the advocates who had lost loved ones in incidents involving CO, and came up with what's in the 27 edition of the code. There were some floor amendments done in Orlando, and then when that was done, there were no public comments submitted after that. It was approved on an overwhelming vote, and because there were no public comments, it wasn't heard in Long Beach. It's now on the consent agenda. It is 100% in the 27 code with no opportunity for anybody to change it at this point. That said, I've not received any negative feedback on it at all. And I actually, as is Ken, I'm encouraging jurisdictions wherever I go to not adopt Section 915 from the 24 code and replace it with what is definitely in the 27, so that you don't have to suffer from an enforcement perspective or force people to spend a lot of unnecessary money between now and your adoption of the 27 code. So I hope that you will move forward with that. I think it's really a win-win. I haven't been able to identify anybody who was not pleased with the results compared to where they were. And for the record, I had no client interest in any of that. I did it on my own as a favor to people to try to get something fixed.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you very much for speaking up on your code change proposal that I have copied and put into Washington.
All right, are there any other comments for Jeff or Ken?
Are we taking out for Group E's?
I'm sorry, what was that, Tim?
Oh,
Or,
yeah, I'm sorry, I should have raised my hand. Are we eliminating it for Group E occupancies? I'm looking at the screen where John put something in. Talked about Group E occupancy loads of 50 or more.
Yeah, I think what happened is, so I don't think he's not showing that section. So 915.4.2.3, I don't know if you can show that section and then on the right show what John's proposal is to change that language. I was trying to take the state's amendment, which was, and everybody was helping with the IBC tag, trying to come up with the language to make more sense for Group E. So that was, you can just see mine where I tried to strike the 30, put 50, and nobody's really been able to explain to me why, but I think it has something to do with the portables and why. But then John came up with that language over on the right-hand side. And if, I think that probably makes more sense.
Yeah, I'd just say I remember the discussion at the IBC tag, and it was about how the two sentences are almost competing, right? And both of them require the same thing. It's just, including the requirements of the second sentence within the first sentence, so it's very easy to read and straightforward. I don't have any offering for why the state switched it to 50 long ago, and ever since has hung on to that. But yeah, I do like the rewrite that John came up with to kind of simplify the section.
Yeah, I want to say I do too. I like the way John has it.
So Dustin, if there's any way that you could take that language and put it into the proposal, that would be, I'd be fine with it to let everybody see it. And then.
And would that just replace this whole paragraph that's highlighted here?
I would think so. But actually, well, no, you need to show, you still need to, well, I guess, I'm sorry, my proposal was showing everything underlined, but I guess you'd still have to somehow show what the existing state language is, or are we just going to be striking? I mean, that's what you're showing here is you're striking the 30, or I'm striking the 30 because that's what the national code was 30. So you'd have to still show the strike through.
Right. All right. So
just like John has it. See, he strikes it through. Yeah, you would have to do the 32. That's also, but basically that would be part of John's thing. So the second sentence that he strikes through, you just have to add the 30 to 50 thing. So
okay.
You actually just need to strike. You can strike the whole thing out because his comment actually hits it perfect, doesn't he? I mean,
yeah. So you could, yeah. So Dustin, what you could do is on the second sentence, get rid of my proposal for the 50 on the second sentence, and then have a strike through of everything, and then just get rid of the 50, and that would show the model code language being struck.
Okay, so delete what I have highlighted, correct?
Just not, yeah, just, but you also want to get rid of that 50 that you show in that second sentence too. So
okay,
yeah, just
so
strike
through.
Strike through that second sentence and just totally get rid of the 50. There you go.
Okay, then that looks good, and
And
then,
then, yeah,
uh,
and then on the
and
first
then strike through
sentence,
the rest of everything too?
no,
Okay,
that's where
sorry.
you got to look at the language there and find out where the changes are.
Yeah, the change is including an audible and visible alarm.
So I would delete the green more, correct?
No, you would load of, yeah, he has occupant load of more than 50, Yeah, and you're gonna, be striking through the or. I don't know if you already struck through the or, I can't tell.
No, I was gonna get that one, so, or less gets completely struck through, more needs to go away, because that's where you're making changes,
Yep.
correct, Ken,
Yep.
in the original?
You got it,
Okay.
just delete the more.
And then we have alarm notification. Then let's do alarm notification. Loading. Heck, I thought I was. Sorry. That be provided in an on-site location staff by a school person.
I think you
Okay,
got
I
it.
think that is accurate.
Yep. So thank you for doing that.
All right, so. No, awesome. Well, let's see what's going on here. I may have. I have messed myself up by trying to save it. Here, we're going to. Okay. We have that one taken care of. So, does this group like what we have going for this revision on this one to move forward to both the IFC and IBC? Any comments?
Looks good.
All right, so all those in favor of moving these back to the individual tags with the proposal as drafted here on screen, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? All right, hearing no opposition, we will bring this one back to IBC and IFC. I'm just making some notes, 1 second. All right, with that one, we are done with 071 revision 1. We now have revision 2 going back to the tags with this work group's blessing. And of course, everything's conspiring against me and not working as smoothly as I would like. There we go. Stop. All right, we're looking at 062 revision 1. Okay. Hopefully this opens up pretty quick. I'm now working off of my cell internet, so I'm probably working even slower than I was when I was first mentioning having issues. All right, so this one is from Micah Chappelle and Angela Haupt and John Seal on behalf of Wabo. Are there any folks here from that group of folks who would wish to speak on this one?
This is Jeff. I'm going to be dropping off. I'm having trouble with my connection.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jeff.
Jeff, for your participation today. Micah, you have your hand up.
I do. Since I'm the only one on the list, I think that's here, but I can't remember what we did on this one. It's got my name on it, but we work on somebody. And Dustin, can you verify? I know we discussed that there were some modifications to this that was brought forward. Did we make that at the tag and put it in this proposal?
Yeah, so what's on here now, we have the first revision here. Let me see if it'll be friendly and let me open up the first version and we can look at them side by side. It looks like this is the revised version 1031.
Okay.
So let me pop this one open here real quick to see the
Just for
original that we
folks'
got.
information, this is just some clarity on where you actually measure, and I believe the revision is something that came through as a public comment during the committee action hearing 2 at ICC in Long Beach that was more specific and better aligned to language. And so we wanted to go with the revised version, which I think is what you're showing, Dustin, correctly. And
Yeah, that's
all.
on the right is the revised language.
Okay, perfect. And that's what this does. Just gives that clarification and what's required. And I'll stand on the reason statements. We can wrap this up. I think this was fairly unanimous vote at the building code tag and didn't have too much scrutiny.
All right, wait.
Yeah, this will be real quick. I was also at the hearings and stuff. I guess people around the place has problems figuring out where to measure the lighting and stuff like this, and this actually helps figure that out, and it kind of makes it easier for inspectors or things like that. So hopefully we'll approve this one as written that Mike has put through.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, seeing no hands, if this group is okay with this, here, let me pull off the original here. All right, so looking to move what's on the screen here. If this group is in favor of pushing this back to the individual tags for recommendation to adopt, please say aye.
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 All righty, is there anybody in opposition to that motion, to movements, I should say? All right, seeing nobody with their hands up or nobody speaking, we will send this one back to the individual tags with this group's blessing. All right, getting back to our agenda. It accidentally closed down on me, so give me 1 second here as I get back into it. All right, that was 62. We're on to 24 GP1-119 revision number 3. And this one is the International Standardized Pictogram for Exit Signs. There's been a lot of discussion at the fire tag on this one, and I think that they're getting close to wanting to move this one forward as well. So give me 1 second as I get that open. All right, this one was put forward by Karsten Jonas. I don't see him, or he is online today. Karsten, would you mind speaking to this one and maybe talking about the revisions made and where we're kind of standing with the other groups?
Alrighty, so basically the revisions were just to cite the reference standard in a way that was consistent with how other reference standards are cited. And basically the discussion at the tag was mainly centered on the fire tag, who had discussions, and then this led to several revisions, including this one. And I believe this is as for the building tag, I believe that tag only had this final revision. So I think both tags are on the same revision.
They should be, yes. We got to this one in the fire tag first, did a lot of work there, and then the building code caught up to that one and reviewed it and held off on any final action until this group had a peek at it. So with that, is there any comments or discussion from the group?
One thing is, I thought it would benefit the proposal, and I know this, it has nothing to do with the correlation, but maybe be added before it goes to the State Building Code Council, is to actually include a picture of what that pictorial exit sign option looks like.
I did include that in a PDF that was along with this, that was sent in with the initial proposal.
Here, let me pop it open. So when we bring this to the committees and the council, we won't be looking at an agenda that looks like what we've got here before us. We'll be looking at the group of proposals. And on our spreadsheet, we will have all of the, any comment letters from the proponents or anybody else that we've received kind of linked in there, and any of these supporting documents as well. I'm attempting to open up the PDF that Karsten mentioned, but it is running slow for me. So give me 1 second. I might be able to pop it open. And Karsten, if you have it available,
I have it. If it
I can let
doesn't
you
work for you,
share.
I can open up for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hang on. I'll get it open in a couple seconds if it doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Oh, here, I got it, Karsten. It opened up on my machine.
Thanks. That's already.
Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing anymore. Here we go.
It's okay. It's okay. It happens to the best of us.
All right, so this is the pictogram that we are discussing.
So that's what we're.
And so, Tim, to your concern is as long as this is included with the supporting documentation, you'd like to see this go with this anywhere else it goes for discussion, correct?
I just think it'll help. I'm in full support of it. Like we talked about in the building code tag, I've seen it. It makes a ton of sense that we go to pictograms versus different, languages in different areas of the country, or different areas of, the world, I guess. So in full support, I think it'll help the proposal out. So yes, I would like to see it move forward with it.
Gotcha. I'll make sure that this is included with any other documents to be transmitted with it. All right, Hoyt.
Yeah, I also want to, I'm same with Tim. Pictogram's nice. For some reason, they also, for the accessibility, sometimes you're able to see the picture better. And actually sometimes in certain distances, you can't read it. It's been shown throughout the world that they use this. And so I'm also in support of this. I just wanted to add that for people that have reading difficulties and stuff like that, the pictogram is a much better way of describing the exiting requirements, as they're also used throughout the world. So, and they have standards for it too. So,
thank you, Hoyt. Any other comments or questions for Karsten? All right, I'm not seeing any other hands coming up. So if this group is in favor of what's before them, I would like to get a quick voice vote on forwarding 24 GP1-119 revision number 3 back to the individual tags, and in future disseminations of this information to also include the pictogram. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anybody in opposition? Hearing none, we will finish that one, and revision number 3 will go back to the individual tags.
Dustin, one quick thing.
Yes, sir.
Can we make sure the Department of Labor and Industry is aware of whatever happens to this one? Because there were also some regulations in that they had that also covered this topic. So
As far as that one goes, I'd be happy to send some communication. But as far as their regulations go, is that within the National Electric Code, or how are they
it was in like the OSHA thing.
in the OSHA?
It was
I
in the
might need
WAC,
to
which
reach
was
out
in the
with
WAC.
you and
It
make
was,
sure
it was
that
somewhere something under. I don't remember the exact number. It was under WAC. So just make sure they stay aware of this.
Okay, I mean, so the rules that we make, L and I, they may not agree, and so I'm gonna need to get back with you, Carson, to make sure that we're communicating with the correct people at L and I. And you know, the rules that we make here doesn't mean that anything that they do necessarily changes. I just want to be clear on that. But we do want to be communicative with our friendly neighbor agencies. So I'll get with you, Carson, after this meeting, and we'll kind of discuss further what you're bringing up there.
All right, thanks. Just send me an
You're
ultimatum.
welcome. Okay, are you available directly after this meeting?
Probably not directly after it, but
Okay, well, we'll
in
coordinate
like
that and figure out what works for our schedules.
yes, yeah. Thanks. Good.
All right, thank you. All right, that brings us to our final proposal on the table today, which is 24 GP1-117 revision number 1. Let's see if I can get that to open up fast. Ken, I believe this one's yours, correct?
Yeah, I kind of feel like Micah, and I'm trying to keep up with which one this is.
It's got to do with electrical energy storage systems.
Okay, so this is the one that's like 35 pages, but it just basically showing all the deletions. Okay. All right, I'll wait for you to pull it up.
Yeah, so here we go. A lot of deletions shown. And we're essentially in the 2021 code, we adopted a bunch of 2024 code, and we're sticking with that and bringing some 2027 code in with this one. Is that a fair summarization?
Not exactly. So the 27, so this proposal brings in what the 27 proposal is. And the 27 proposal is basically saying, hey, we've been pointing to NFPA 855 for most of the requirements. And in even the scoping section, everything says, hey, you got to do everything, by this section. And then, oh, in addition, you're going to be, putting it in and to NFPA 855. So what has been done here is striking a lot of the duplicate material that's in NFPA 855 and just pointing to NFPA 855 instead. And then one of the other things, I can't remember if it was brought up at the tag or not, and it might have been part of the revision, is that there was part of the proposal was in 1207.13. If you go all the way down to page 34, I don't know how fast you can get down there. And I really want to know what cell service you use. That it's so good that you can still have your video on, Dustin.
I'm on Verizon.
All right. Good advertisement for Verizon right there. So the 1207.13 in the proposal, I struck the apparatus road section just because in the fire code we don't adopt that section 503 in the state of Washington. So I thought it would be best just not to do that and just renumber the fire protection water supply portion of this. But if you look at where on the left-hand side there it shows 1207, that's what the rewrite would actually look like. Of all of the sections, and just to imagine the 1207.13 to be gone. So this might be the easiest way to look at it, but if anybody wants to go through page by page, we can. But in general, that's what we've done is we've taken the proposal that pushes everything to NFPA 855, kept the permit requirements for construction permits and operational permits. Talked about the operational permits aren't required for 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouses. The installation in 1207.3 just again just pushes everything to NFPA 855. Evacuation plan still is going to reference 404. We're not going to make any changes in there. The vehicle impact protection in the 24 code, there's all these pictures and all this other stuff about vehicle impact protection, which has just caused some debate. So it's been best just to push it back to the standard section 312. And if that section in the future is going to have pictures, great, but there's no pictures anymore. Fire detection requirements, if it's required in 855, then they just put it in for the fire code, which then is going to turn around and reference 72. And the same thing with the suppression system. Explosion control, again, just reference when it's required in 855. The ventilation, where required in 855, they got to put it in per the mechanical code. Gas detection has to put it in per 916 of the fire code. And then the separations, this is where I did not compare any language in the building code, and I don't know, I know Micah, we were trying to, and you did some cleanup in sales building code, but in 1207.11, fire rated separations, I don't know if we're causing any confusion by where it says, where required by 855, that they need to be fire barriers, construction in accordance with 707, horizontal assemblies, construction section 711. Just making sure, I don't know if those match up or not. If there's language in 707 and 711 or not. And that's pretty much what the section would look like. All of the stuff that used to talk about Workgroup R3 and occupancies, that's not in here, that 1207.11 section. That's all been struck. And just if you're, it's all, anything that's in the International Residential Code will be used for that scoping. So all the, when it had that whole 1207.11 section for ESS and group R3 and R4 occupancies, that's just mainly just pushing everything back to the residential code. Mike has got his hand up. I don't know if you can see that, Dustin. I'm done talking at the moment.
Well, I see Hoyt up above him. Hoyt, was yours up before that, and you got a comment?
Yeah, the one thing that's on there, and this goes in the building code, NFPA 855 or 855 is not in the reference standards.
Ooh, good catch, Hoyt.
Yeah, so
we
the problem
got
is,
to tune up so chapter 35 needs to get addressed.
yeah, so I mean, is it the one thing these standards do? Is it the whole code, or is there certain sections of this, things like that?
So with that, do we have that in our WAC right now? Chapter 35. I'm looking in our WAC really quick.
I kind of feel like we do, but I'm not 100% sure.
So. No, we don't have. We have our state amendment did not reference 855. Well, let me back up. So let me back up. This is just fire code stuff. This is no building code stuff. So maybe
If you're putting it in the building code,
I'm
we
not,
all put it there too, at least, get us copy it from the NFP or from the fire code. It's in there, so.
but no, we're not copying section 1207 into the building code.
No. The reference, it should also be in the reference standard in chapter 35.
But where is it called out in the IBC NFP 855?
In your NFP of 855, it's not. You have it in your proposal.
I know I have it in my proposal, but my proposal is only to the IFC.
Oh, never mind then. If you're just putting it in the IFC, then you don't have to worry about it. My mistake. I was looking at the IBC. Please forgive me. I thought we were doing both together, so I was just doing that. So if I don't have to, then if it's IFC, then that's fine. If it's in the reference standard.
So Ken, just so I'm clear, this proposal does touch both the IBC and IFC. So we're in the IBC, we're only dealing with 907.2.23.
Yeah, so if you scroll to that part, is it reference 855 there?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
So then we wouldn't necessarily need the chapter 35 and the IBC to be added in there.
Yeah, you're correct. I was thinking back, just why are we in this meeting? Why are we trying to correlate it? And it's at just the 907.2.23 section.
Yeah,
Which
I was
is,
like, I was gonna have to apologize and say I didn't mean to have this on the agenda
Yeah.
if this only was for the one code.
no, and that section just adds in the thermal imaging detection system as another technology available for detection.
And then here we go.
So I went through the whole song and dance, asked for Micah's help with the building code stuff. And I'm still asking for it, Micah. Do we need to do anything in the building code? Because I'm pointing to that section.
To answer that, there were two proposals that we discussed at the IBC tag that did put something in 707 and 711, and those got approved. So
okay,
they should be moving forward.
Okay, so we're good there.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'll be quiet now.
Tim.
My only comments I read through here and it just stuck out to me because of our long conversation about 4 stories for townhouses. Your very beginning 12071, it does specifically reference townhouses not more than 3 stories, 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouses. So I wasn't sure if you wanted to correlate it with your other code modification or not.
Okay, so you're talking on 1207.2.2.
1207.1,
Oh,
exception number 2.
Okay. Maybe I.
Tim, which page is that on?
Page 2 of the proposal, right at the top.
Okay, thank you.
1207.1, exception 2.
All right.
So thanks for that, Tim. Okay. So
Keep going up, Dustin. 1207.1.
I just want to see, is that
Okay, I'm sorry. There's a lot of 1207 and
Yep,
there's a lot of stuff in there. It's
1207.1 right there.
confusing to my eyes.
Exception.
Yep.
Exceptions and exception number 2, I think is what Tim's talking about.
Yep.
7.
I think that's a good catch, Tim. You're probably correct.
Yeah, I was just trying to correlate with any existing state amendments. So that exception. Yeah, so whatever Tim just said, if you want to tweak that, I mean, if it makes sense to tweak it.
Should we add the 4 stories above grade plane then?
No, because I don't want to say more than 4 stories.
It says not more than 3 stories now, so
And well, when it says ESS installed in accordance with section R330, all right, so that gets us to the residential code, but residential code isn't going to allow it, right? So it's gonna. I think we would be creating a conflict if we put 4 in there. I think if they put it in per R330, then we have to stay within the scoping of the residential code, which is the 3 stories. I don't think we want to put the 4 stories in there. I appreciate what you're thinking because of the other code change proposal, but I think that exception points to the residential code and the requirements in R330. And I think it would cause some conflict if all of a sudden it says, well, hey, in R330, you're saying it's okay to go to 4 stories, and the code change proposal was for the 4 stories and sprinklers was only in the building code. I don't know if I'm making
I'm not arguing that. It just seems awful redundant then, right? Like, why not just end the whole sentence after section R330 of the International Residential Code? Because the International Residential Code, in order to use it, they would have had to have been under 3 stories, but maybe it provides a greater level of clarification. I'm not set either way. I was just thinking about the other code change proposal, so we can leave it just how it is as far as I'm concerned.
So I'm looking at that R330 currently is adult family home. So there's, I guess, we probably still use R330 in the 2024 code, and then the adult family homes will get renumbered to fit in wherever it's needed. So anyway, I just probably not terribly relevant.
Yeah, and 1207 is actually enhanced classroom acoustics. So it's going to be changed anyway. The numbering is going to have to be changed in the code of correlation.
Again, Hoyt, this is the fire code for the 12071.
Ben?
Thanks. So I think there's definitely some amendments needed to the mechanical code to accommodate this. So previously with like the 2021 and 2024 codes, the pointer in the mechanical code, which previously had some ventilation exhaust requirements for battery storage areas, got moved, like just kind of wholesale moved into IFC. And that's where it kind of it lives now with, I guess, some of the redundant NFPA 855 requirements. So I think at a minimum we need a pointer in the mechanical code to NFPA 855. And I'm curious if Ken, you're aware if this change is happening for or proposed to happen for 2027 IFC? Is that
Yeah,
right?
it is. And I'm just trying to double check the 24 edition of the mechanical code.
It should, I think it's similar in its reference to the 2021 right now, where it points to 1207. But I'm curious what they did or is what's proposed for if there's any corresponding change to the mechanical code for 2027.
And I don't, is that this group, Micah? Or is it the next group?
I think
Are you asking
mechanical
the
is group
mechanical
one.
code?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's group 1, and we just, because this proposal doesn't have the mechanical code drafted into it, it wasn't kind of slated for all 3 tags to look at, but I think Ben's point is relevant.
Oh, yeah, no, it is. I'm just trying to figure out I was asking like at the national level, did the 24 code just go for mechanical? Is that just reviewed? Because I'm in the 24 code right now. And Ben, do you remember,
Yeah,
was it chapter 4 or 5? What was the section?
it's in chapter 5.
Chapter 5.
And I think they went through their proposal process for mechanical.
Okay, so I'm just trying to look in chapter 5 and seeing if there's a battery charging area.
Yeah, if you're looking at 2024 model code,
I am.
it's in 502.4.
Okay, got it. Okay, so ventilation per 502.4. Yeah, so there's just one section. Stationary storage battery system shall be regulated and ventilated in accordance 1207.6.1. Okay, so that would be the confusion of what would 1207.6.1 look like. So we would have to correlate that. That is a great catch.
So, in order to get that drafted so we can look at it, would it be good to just bring that back with with the other one on Monday?
Let me just.
I'll raise my hand and say, yes, we can do that. Ken, we're probably confusing some of this. Seattle specific put some stuff in the mechanical code under chapter 5 that captured the requirements of your 1207, if you remember correctly, but we did not bring that to the state. I forgot, quite honestly, that mechanical was part of group 1.
Okay.
So I think we can get some changes quickly together, and I'll have them sent to you, Dustin and Ben, and whoever else wants them, to see if that helps.
Got it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Again, that's why we have these meetings.
Yeah. Hey, I would like to have a copy of that, Micah, if you could just send it to me, just so.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll throw it over to Ken and see if that's what we were looking at, and Ben, and then we can shoot out to the groups. I may be off on what we have in there is capturing what Ben is concerned about. So let me do that first, and then we can shoot out to the rest of the folks who want it. Wait.
Alrighty. Other discussion on this particular proposal? We've got looks like 40 more minutes we can while away if we want, but if we're planning on just doing some revisions to this one and bringing it back at Monday, it looks like we're getting to the end of our time together today. Tim with the party emoji. Okay, well, before I close the meeting down, does there anybody else have anything else for the good of the order? I'll open it up for other business or other comments real quick. And if there's no hands, we'll adjourn. Micah.
I just want to say thanks for having this. This wasn't done last code cycle. I think this is a really big help. Even though I know it's a lot of added meetings for staff, I should say I appreciate staff for doing this time around.
Well, I appreciate everybody being volunteers for this group in the tags and within this group as well. We couldn't do it without you, and you know, hearing folk about it, it's sorely needed. So I'm happy to do it. I don't look at it as extra work. It's just the work that wasn't done before me. So anyway, with that one, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn this meeting, and I'll wish everybody a I guess be safe in the cyclone bomb or whatever's going off. That's what happened at my house to me earlier. The power went off because I'm sure a tree fell somewhere on the peninsula. And anyway, so I'm limping along, and with that, I will call this meeting closed.
All right, thanks, everybody. It was nice.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.